me. There we go.
Yo, yo, yo. You are watching Your Big Brothers. I'm your host, Glenn Lawrence, brought to you by with Husband, the dating coach extraordinaire. So today, it is Thirsty Thursdays. And you know what we do on Thirsty Thursdays, right? What do? We bring the ladies. So tonight, we have Coco, as usual. She's running a little late, but we have some special guests. Now, I know this lady. I know her. We have worked together. Actually, we have worked on a film together that has yet to be released. It's still in the edit. Now, she's an amazing actress, and she's a very smart and very outspoken woman. She just brought in a beautiful baby, so I want to congratulate for that as well. But please, everybody, welcome my friend and co-actress, co-host, or co-star, Kristen. Hold on, let me bring her up. Where's she at? Hey, Kristen.
Hello. Hey,
How's it been?
it's been good. Fuck off. I like that background. Nice.
It's been a hot minute since Token Choke.
It has. And you know what the irony is that all happened right before the COVID lockdowns.
It really
then
did.
that's
Like
when I
we
got really
finished.
outspoken.
Yeah, we finished filming like the 15th or the 16th.
March,
And
I
they
think mid-March.
Yeah, mid-March, and they locked it down like right by the
Right
20th.
after that.
Oh my
Yep.
God, that was right when it all happened. That's crazy.
Actually,
Yep.
if I remember correctly, out of that year, we were one out of 13 films that were completed in production before the lockdown.
That sounds about right because I remember people being like, "You're still working."
Well, we didn't even know what was really going on.
Nobody did.
We were still so focused on the film that we didn't realize how bad it was.
No, and I've always been one of those people who puts media out of my mind, so I just wasn't completely paying attention to it. And then when friends started going into a frenzy about it, I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's crazy because like right after the lockdown, my buddy Aaron Toft, who's a filmmaker, and he also is a costume designer, and he hits me up. He's like, "Yo, let's do like a spoof of like the toilet paper Terminator." Because at that time everybody was like,
yeah, everybody
hoarding
was
toilet paper.
that. I feel like that was just at complete. I could go on about all of the scares that are happening now that are like the gas scare and the energy crisis and all this stuff. It's all orchestrated.
Oh,
And
it's
I feel
all
like the
created.
toilet paper craze was like the higher ups going, let's play a game on them and scare them with a toilet paper craze. Like, have you ever heard of coffee filters, people? They work the same way that toilet paper does.
Wait,
Yep.
hold on, Kristen, hold on. You're telling me that during the pandemic you were using coffee filters as toilet paper?
No, but I would have used that. I wasn't going to go crazy going out for toilet paper.
I'll share the clip with you. It's funny. It's like a 5-minute short film that we did where I just like come from the future and I like shoot people and take their toilet paper. It's pretty funny.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, so a lot has been changing the last 2-3 years since we finished that
Yeah,
project.
2 almost. Yeah.
Almost 3 years. March.
Was it?
We
Yeah,
started in 2020.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I know. And the funny thing is, I have all the footage. I'm the
I
one
know.
that's editing it right now.
And that's what I was saying to your co-host. Remind me your name again.
HUDs.
HUDs. I'm just being brought on this. I don't know anything. I just was asked to do this. So HUDs. We were yes talking about that.
Yeah. No, I'll send you some more clips. I got a few more. I'll send you some.
Okay.
But let's get into the topic today. So, Kristen, I wanted you to come on not only because you are a well-known actress, you are also very well-known, outspoken woman. Like, I mean, I love following your comments or all your posts because you really give zero fucks when you're about to lay someone out. Like, you literally lay them out, like no problem. So I wanted to bring you on because you're so outspoken. And, we're seeing well, at least I'm seeing an issue in our current culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of males, but not a lot of men.
So
I think there's a lot of fake men masquerading as men, imposters.
especially in Los Angeles and New York.
You know that.
Yeah.
But I think it's being pushed by a certain culture, a certain movement. I think feminism has something to do with it. And you posted something about the effects that this is having on kids, or like grooming kids or something along
Mhm.
those lines,
Mhm.
like, raising them to be this, way.
Yeah.
And you really dove deep into that. I really wanted to bring you on to talk about, what do you think the effects of this, push on kids and adults are? And how do you think it's affecting dating and relationships
Mhm.
and impacting, the culture?
Well, what happened was in the early 2000s, people were talking about, okay, we need gay rights and gay marriage to be okay. And I was all about that. I was like, yeah, if two people want to marry one another and they're of the same sex and they're not promoting their ways onto me, what they do in the bedroom is their business. I could give two shits. And I was completely all on board with that. I'm even okay with two gay parents as long as they are not projecting their ways onto the children. But what's happened into the school system is they are saying to kids, it's not only okay to call yourself the opposite sex, but we are going to fire teachers if they don't acknowledge them not only by their pronouns. So if it's a boy, saying that he's a she and or she's a he, if they want to be called they them, that's okay. And then if they want to be labeled as animals too, that's okay. That's where the lines start to get really blurred, and you're going into a dark hole. It's not just acceptance anymore. It's anything goes, and you have to be okay with it, and you have to not only accept my way of life, but incorporate it into your own world. It's just like religion. Do you, but once you start bringing it into my world and I have to live by your rules, I have a big fucking problem with that.
That's a
Yeah, I
good
think
point.
everybody does.
Yeah. The majority of the United States, as far as race and sex and everything else goes, at this point, we've actually grown and gone beyond a lot of the like prejudices. But once things swing in the opposite direction, and we're supposed to be like incorporate your way of life into our own, that's where I have an issue with it, you know?
Yeah. Huds, do you have a follow-up question to this?
Yeah, I'm just like curious. How do you think that that's affecting like the men that we're dealing with these days? Because I see a lot of struggling that guys are doing when it comes to dating, and then
Yeah.
I also see a lot of guys, they tend to listen to whatever propaganda or message is sent out there, and then they're not getting success, and then they don't understand why.
That all started with the Me Too movement. That's where, because I've people labeled me as a feminist early in my life as a young girl and a teenager and into my 20s. And I sort of identified with that because I was genuinely about female empowerment. But when I started seeing it swinging in the direction of man hating, that's when I was like, oh, this has been propaganda since the 60s. So you had the 50s that was all about family and the perfect housewife and everything. And maybe that wasn't perfect. But then you have the 60s where it's like freedom, female empowerment, birth control, abortion, all of these things. And that's when men started to become confused because they're like, what's our role? And it
You know-
progressed over and over and over. And now we're in like, what is it, the third or fourth wave of feminism? And so men don't even know how to approach women anymore because of the propaganda that started with the Me Too movement. So that was whatever it is, the third, I think it's the fourth wave of
Let
feminism.
let me ask you a question because I was listening to Fresh and Fit a little bit today, and I love what they do when they bring women on. If you were to be approached by a man, how would you want that man to approach you?
just like completely open without being, there are aggressive men, but assertive men, that's always attractive. There's a difference between aggression and assertiveness, and men are wired to be assertive. So an assertive man, even if I'm not physically attracted to him, an assertive man, a woman is going to always appreciate.
Even if
Yeah.
she's not necessarily interested in him,
Or
she's still gonna
available. Like,
appreciate it.
I mean, I'm not even available, but if a man was like, I noticed XYZ, can I buy you a drink? Thank you so much. I appreciate you being a man to offer me a drink, but I have somebody else, or even if I'm not interested, I'm not. I mean, you can word it nicely to the point where you still appreciate the act of being a man. And that's something I've actually noticed about East Coast men versus West Coast men. East Coast guys they still have a little assertiveness in them. West Coast guys, not so much.
You hear that, Glenn?
What? Look, she ain't talking about me when she's talking about West Coast
No,
guys.
I'm not. No,
No,
no.
like,
And there's
trust
always
me. Like,
exceptions
look,
to the
I have a
rule,
whole
but
scene. We have a whole scene where like I manhandle her really well. She already knows how it goes down over here. Okay, she already knows. So she's talking about these other guys that wear skinny jeans. Okay. So here's my follow-up question to that though. It's like, how do you think it is for a girl to the average woman? Do you think the average woman is wanting the type of guys that are coming out now? Because like an author named Rollo Tomasi, he wrote The Rational Male. He's somebody that I love to listen to and follow. He makes this point where like the men that we have today are the men that the women have created.
yeah.
You know, they have groomed them to be this way. We have told them to be this way. You know, so in a way, we have created this caliber of men, and so their flaws and their shortcomings were either done because they weren't taught to be masculine, or they were taught to reject masculinity and adapt to femininity. So, do you think that he's right? Because I've come to think that he might be onto something there.
He's absolutely onto something, and a lot of that derives from the divorce culture that I think we're all in around the same age group, older millennials, let's say. And I think a lot of that comes from that because you have men growing up with single mothers and without strong father figures. And then you have women taking on masculine roles because they have to support themselves or they see their mom struggling. And so what happens is a complete role reversal. And I think that's all organized. Like when you start to see people around you all kind of on the same wave, it's like, but it feels abnormal. You have to question, where does this all come from?
I got a follow-up question to that, Huz. Hold on real quick. So you mentioned the divorce, and it's funny because a lot of people will look at like comments that I make or other people make from this space, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, you're against marriage," and I'll say like, the way that we do marriage today is something that we really can't support. The way that we're doing it with the court system, how we're interjecting the court system into something that's supposed to be a covenant between people.
Yeah.
It makes it a contract rather than a relationship.
Totally.
It makes it a business transaction.
Totally.
And then you can't accept the way that we do marriage without accepting the way that we do divorce. See, the way that we do divorce is so unacceptable that it's like, how can you really accept the marriage aspect? Because if you can't be divorced unless you were married.
It's something that I believe shouldn't be legal or illegal either which way. It shouldn't even be a part of the system, period.
Exactly.
I feel the same way about abortion. So when people say, like, how do you feel about abortion? I'm like, I don't think it's the system's right either which way. So the system is paying for inner city women to have these abortions. That's not moral. Is it somebody's right to tell you what to do with your body? No, that's not either. So I fall in this weird middle ground where I'm like, women are not looking at this logically. It shouldn't be the system's right either way. And I feel that way about marriage and divorce too. This should be something that the system is not even a part of at all.
It's a good point. I really think there needs to be a separation between the things, and we have intermingled it way too much.
Yeah.
Hello, Miss Coco.
Hi.
Coco, meet Kristen. Kristen, Coco.
Hi.
So
Hi.
we were just diving into like the way that we do divorce and talking about feminized men. I want to stick to the divorce topic real quick before we go past that. So when we look at it, like the way that I found an article where a girl said that, I want my first marriage to be for money and then my second marriage to be for love. So have women like in the culture now have like devalued what marriage is, and how has this feminine wave have really affected the outlook of marriage in your eyes?
In my eyes or Coco's?
In yours.
Yeah, what's happened is women, they are afraid to be in touch with their emotions and they're afraid to expose that, which is also an inversion of the way that we're naturally wired. So then they act all hard and all tough and watch people like Cardi B as somebody to look up to, and they're like, oh yeah, let me just take him for his money and everything he's worth, because that makes them feel better. Basically what that is what like in the 50s men who hit their wives were. It's the same thing. So
it's the converse.
Yeah, exactly. It's somebody who's insecure and hurt and broken down by their life, not willing to look at themselves in the mirror and not facing themselves and just being like in tune with their femininity. And so they even if they are super smoking hot, they step into the masculine.
Yeah. It's a good point. What do you think it is that is causing these men to become so feminized? I mean, the topic of the show, when your boyfriend becomes your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like what is causing this, to ask them? Because essentially, go ahead.
So many different reasons. It's coming at all different angles. It's the fluoride in the water. It's the chemtrails in the sky. It's the vaccines that they're making us all take. It's the advertisements that we see where the beta is cool all of a sudden. Because the alpha has always been looked up to as like the supreme, as an alpha woman. An alpha woman is not somebody who is the domineering type either. And so now like all of the feminized, the women who are in the feminist movement are trying to be men. And so then you have that confusion when that's not actually feminine power. So there's so many different factors of why men are becoming feminized. It's environmental. It's what they're watching on TV. It's what they're being told from their friends. I'm in a court case because this girl's calling rape when I didn't rape her. Okay, so you're dealing with a plethora of issues here. And so men, even alpha masculine men are like, whoa, what is going on here? And they start becoming more demure because of what's going on culturally. So there are so many factors, but it's really a cultural thing, and it's coming from the top down, not the bottom up.
Yeah,
I would say it's definitely. And before we go to Coco, I would say it's definitely, if you remember that Gillette commercial that they had back in like 2017, 2018.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it shows that exactly. Like, hey man, she doesn't want to be approached. and it's like, okay, I guess I'm not approaching women anymore. It just sends the
Yeah,
wrong message to guys.
such a
It,
wrong
it
message.
doesn't, as you exactly as you said, there's a difference between aggression and assertion.
Yep,
And men are naturally assertive, but we're being told that we can't do any of that.
exactly.
So, Coco,
Well, I agree with Kristen on a lot of points, and especially like with what's in the food. There is so much hormones and stuff in the food. Like if you look at when we grew up and how kids looked and how they acted and how they are now physically, a lot of them look like little mini versions of females.
Yeah.
And that plays a big giant role in it. It's personal opinion, but based off of a track record that I've seen. And one of them is I think that when men become too feminized is coming from single family homes where they're raised by their mother. My ex-husband was raised by his mother. Granted, she was hardly ever there, but he admitted, he's like, I'm not much of a man's man. And it was a turn off. I didn't know that. But because he's like, I didn't grow up with a dad. I didn't know how to do any of these things. I don't know how to fix the sink. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what kind of tools I need. I don't know how to fix a car. Like, all he was exposed to is his mom and her emotions all the time and her constantly coddling him. There's a difference for, comforting your child when your child needs to be comforting and then or comforted, as opposed to constantly coddling them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that growing up with a single parent, and if you're a boy and you're growing up with like your mom, it's really going to change your manhood unless you have a mentor or somebody that you could use or look up to as a father figure in that aspect that's active in your lives to teach you that.
So true. And my dad grew up in a single mother household with 7 children. And I would say that he fell on the opposite end of that spectrum, where he became hyper masculine and was completely detached from his emotions. So it can swing either way, but you need both parents who love you and are teaching you how to be human, basically, in order to function normally. And what happened with our age group is we were lacking in that department. So now we're struggling in our relationships, or at least the people who are still asleep to this are.
Yeah, I want to definitely agree with that. Like, and Coco brought up a good point is that, well, you both did about the things that are in the environmental. I mean, just in our body washes alone, you know how like there's like tons of, put soy in everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
When they say soy boys, they mean it.
they mean that shit for real. And so I'm
Yeah.
gonna do a plug right now. If you guys, if you don't want to wash your body with a whole bunch of soy, go to Rich Cooper, get up on his I think it's called Cooper soap or something like that.
well, there's tactical soap.
Tactical soap, yeah.
Yep.
I got it. It's worth it. It's it's a little pricey for a bar, but it's definitely worth it. So definitely go over to Rich Cooper's.
It's also pheromone induced.
Yeah. So you guys can like
wow.
attract the ladies with the pheromones. It's kind of cool. So here's the thing, like when it comes to the guys, right? Like, so we have created this generation, unfortunately, of this weak, men. And I think that contributes to a lot of the outbreaks. Like they want to call it like toxic masculinity. I think if they're going to label anything toxic masculinity, it is of the lack of masculinity in these young men. They're acting so emotional, but they act out in violence. So that's why they see the masculine part, but they're acting emotionally like, women do. And they're not being able to register. It's not crossing. The wires are crossed.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that we should be teaching our young boys how to be men more than how to be these vulnerable crybaby, use your word type kids?
Yeah, and I think that comes from it's a 50-50 split. I grew up and my parents were like, we didn't go to college. You have to go to college. You have to get a career. You have to be self-sufficient, which yeah, I mean, you want to like what you do, but then women are becoming these workhorses And that's not in our nature. And then men are becoming exactly what you just said. So we are both getting in an inversion. And what we have to do is not accept what we're seeing culturally and turn it back no matter what and fight against it.
I think that starts within the home. Like that's stepping the parenting. That's where it really goes down. Coco, what do you think about that?
No, I agree. I think it needs to be switched back, even though there's so much push for it in that direction. And yes, there's so many. I mean, it really starts from how your upbringing was, and if you're born more in the modern era, or if you were raised with old-fashioned parents like myself. I mean, my dad was like, "Look, I'm going to teach you how to change your tire, and I'm going to teach you how to to get yourself out of snow." He goes, but that's only because in case there's nobody else around. But you should know that this is something that your husband or another man should do for you. You should not have to do this, but I want you to know how in case of an emergency, because this is a man's job. That's his job. And the same thing, like I want you to know how to change your oil in your car. Not because I want you to do it. It's not your job. But just in case you needed to know how to check it, how to fill it, you know what you're doing. So yeah, I was raised that men are supposed to lead the house. They're supposed to be masculine. They're supposed to be stoic. They're supposed to be all this. And then they're comforting to their wife in private. Like in their home, they are that cuddly teddy bear. They're emotional with them, but to the point where it's not like you feel like you're with a woman, like like all of a sudden he's just crying, being like, "I love you so much," and you're just like, "Okay, okay."
But then why, Coco? Why is it that society is telling men to be a woman? Why are they telling them to be that way? Why are they telling them that is the one, that's the type of guy that women are going to be attracted to?
And now, is this men saying this to men, or is this women saying this to men?
This is women saying this to men. And it's also, when I say society too, when you think about all the different advertisements and stuff that's put out there, that's the message we're giving men.
The system giving it to men.
Exactly. And if it's women, other women saying it, you have to remember that these are the modern women that don't want to lose their boss babe hierarchy. And they're like, if I have a weak man, then that means I can use him as a doormat and I can do whatever it is that I want. He can't have a say so. And he's just going to, "Oh, yes, honey. Oh, yes, honey. Oh, my wife is so great. She makes her own money and da 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 da." And then a lot of men have gotten soft to where they don't even want to have that kind of responsibility. They're like, they like the fact that somebody else is also working, because then that entire load is not on them. But then you're fighting in your household on who is actually having the hierarchy when it's supposed to be the man. So then it's like, oh, so we're supposed to be equal in everything. Like nothing gets accomplished. I'm sorry, when everybody is on the same playing field.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wanted to bring that up. Thank you for bringing that up, Coco. So traditionally we lived in what people will call patriarchy, right? Or a very biblical framework, marriage, right? Where husbands are the head of the household. Nowadays we live in a very egalitarian, world where everybody's equal, they have equal authority and equal, what the funny thing is like they have equal authority, but not equal responsibility, so when we look at like the decline in marriage, right? What do you guys think that the egalitarian push has a role in it, like plays a factor, or what do you think is contributing to the demise of marriages? Is it the way that we have it structured, or is it, what exactly in your eyes, Kristen, do you guys see? And then Coco, please follow up, that plays a role in the breakdown of the marriage.
Well, it's exactly like what I said before about the divorce thing, where there was that boom and you see your parents going through things. And then there are these people who, even me, I came from divorced parents and I had trauma that I had to work through, but people aren't willing to face their own demons. You have to do that first and then realize why you're becoming the boss babe. Well, why are you becoming that boss babe? Maybe it's because you have daddy issues that you need to work through. And why are these men becoming betas? Maybe it's because you didn't have the male figure that you were supposed to. So marriage should be something that's sacred and something that is just, you want to do it. And then the government gets involved. So you're being attacked by all of these different forces to make you go, men and women. Oh, do I want to do this? Do I want to deal with a divorce? Do I want to deal with a woman taking me for my money? Do I want to deal with even saying, let's get a prenup because I'm afraid that you're going to take me for my money because of the gold diggers? And then the woman is like, well, I want commitment, but I'm afraid to say that because my mom did that and then she was left. And so you're left with all of these different problems on the table and you're like, do I want this? That's what's happening.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. I definitely see like exactly what you're talking about because like it makes the commitment like so the idea of it just so distant now. It's like cringe, right? You have over I think it's over 50% divorce rate now. I think it's like 54% divorce rate or 58,
Mhm.
something like
So
that.
I think it's about like 70, isn't it?
No, that's how
Or
many
no, yeah,
women
you're right. I'm mixing up
that's who
statistics.
initiates divorce. Women,
Mhm.
and that's the other thing. Women tend to initiate divorce 70
Yeah.
to 80% of the time. So it's like when it comes to commitment, you're kind of wondering who really has the commitment issue in that
Right.
aspect. But Coco, what's your thoughts on it?
I mean, I agree with what Kristen said, except my family, because I knew a lot of people that had divorce in their family, and they were scared. Just like they never wanted to get divorced because they saw their parents or everybody in their family for some reason all got divorced. But in that era, like their parents, like their grandparents and their parents got divorced. In that era, that's when the roles were reversed, when men were actually doing more of the infidelity than the women, and now it's it's the opposite. But
Yeah.
that's the reason why they got the divorce, is because of the infidelity. And so, but they were still like, I know men, they're like, I don't know if I even want to get married because I saw what my parents went through. And I'm even scared to have kids because what if I have kids with this person? And then I'm obligated to them, even if I wouldn't want them in my life, if something crap like that happened. And then they took me through the ringer. I mean, and my parents have been married for almost 40 years. So I didn't have that. So I have a very beautiful view of marriage. Granted, everybody has their issues and they definitely have their fair share. But the fact is like, I think it is different for everybody's point of view on their household that they grow up and what they take for it. But I mean, I have been divorced and I only became the boss babe because I needed to. I mean, when I left my divorce, I asked nothing from the guy. Most women would do that. It's very rare. I asked nothing. I picked up, I left with nothing except what I could stick and my dog in my car. That was it. That's what I did. And I was like, there's nothing that I want from him. Like, there's nothing from my old life that I want from this man. And most women, like Glenn said, are getting married for finances, and then their second one's going to be for love. And that's not what you're supposed to do. Like, you're not supposed to do that to another human being because you're ruining something that's actually like very sacred.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful if you think about it, like what it's supposed to mean. So I only became like having to be more self-sufficient because I didn't have anybody. And I'm like, you know what? So I need to woman up on myself and take care of myself. But that's not my goal. My permanent goal is to not be a permanent boss babe. Like, no, I grew up where like the man runs the house. It was very biblical structured. I have my duties. That's what I was built for. That's where my automatic chemistry mindset goes to. Like, to taking care of when I'm in a relationship. I'm like, my automatic mindset is like, how can I take care of you? Not like, what can I do to make more money? So I could be independent while being in a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. One thing I wanted to bring up as we're talking about this, and I've been thinking about it. I've always viewed it in this way. I've always viewed it that the woman, her job is to raise the kid for the first half, and then the second half is for the dad to be, more stricter and get them through the teenage years to becoming an adult. What do you guys think about that?
I would agree with that, especially for a young woman, because the mom is a nurturer by nature, and the dad is somebody who creates structure. When two children are born, a boy and a girl, the girl is generally easier in the first 9, 10, 11 years. She's easier. She's not getting messy in the yard. She's not running down the street. She's not causing a muck. But once she becomes a teenager, that's a different story. So the dad needs to step in, especially during those years where she's getting the boyfriends. she's becoming a woman. Dad needs to really be there then, overseeing everything. Whereas a mom is more necessary during the early years of womanhood or childhood. And so, yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Before Coco answers, I want to say this. Like, my sister, her boyfriends weren't scared of my stepdad so much, but they feared and terrified. They were terrified of me. Like, they would come to the door, like, "What the fuck you doing here?" Is no, go. Okay, okay. Like, I would be so mean to them while they were trying to date her, but then I became their friends after they broke up. It was just a sick fucking way I twisted their men, you know, fucked up their heads. But you know, it was cool. But Coco, go ahead, follow up with that.
No, I think Huds has a very valid point in that, you know, because like Kristen said, like it's in our nature to be very nurturing. And when they're small, you know, they're delicate, they're fragile, and we just want to make sure that they're going to be okay and everything's going to be fine. They're going to be healthy. And then once they start getting into crap, then and they actually absorbing more things and starting to learn things about life between right and wrong and all the in structure and all this other stuff. That's because since the husband is supposed to be the head of the household, he makes the rules and the standards of these things. It's good for him to do that because one, it also protects the woman, because from a man's point of view, because my dad did that with me. He's like, look, I'm not saying this to be a dick. He's like, but I just know because I am a man and I was this age once and I know what happens. So it was more of like a protective thing and to be more self-aware. So that way I wasn't naive because I was also a very sheltered child. So it was more of like preparation for me to be safe and to be cautious and know what you look for in a man. You know, this is what a man should be doing for you. This is what, you know, the things to stay away from, how to be careful when you're around dudes. And, you know, and there's that security and that bond also that a daughter has with her dad when they have that. And she becomes actually way more particular and very picky with the guys that it is that she wants. And she looks at her dad as a standard, being like, if I don't have that, even though she doesn't want to marry her dad, that's disgusting. But, you know, like it's a standard. So she's like, if I don't have that.
So true.
Yes, if I don't have that.
So true.
It's a measuring stick. Dads are a measuring stick for young women.
And that's what they're supposed
That's what
to
they
be.
want to mirror. They want the qualities that their father has in the man. That should be something that they are attracted to. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And boys should look at their father and be like, that's the standard of what I need to aspire to be.
Exactly.
You know, that's ideal. I want to answer this question to the ladies from Phil Foster from philfosterfitness.com. He's a good friend and other panel member. He asks, don't women usually use financial status in men as a metric? So ladies, do you guys look at how much a man earns as a metric for dating or getting into a relationship? Is that something that you guys factor in?
I would say it's a factor in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. Women and men both have factors. If you were to create a checklist of things, women would have 100 things and men would have 100 things.
I don't know. I got to push back. No, I push back.
Whatever.
Guys have one thing. Guys have one thing. Hot or not. Okay.
Oh, come on. You have to have a little bit of brains. Give me a break.
Well, yeah.
No, the number one thing. No,
don't even go.
Come on. That list is so much shorter. Can she carry conversation? Can she cook? Is she sweet? And is she hot?
Carrying conversation comes with brains, and looks and brains together on the male and female spectrum is rare. It is.
But I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying the guys don't have 100 things. They have like top 5, maybe 5 max.
5 things. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. It's on that list. And I would say for women, women naturally look for security because we want to take care of our kin. We want to take care of our offspring, and we don't want to have to worry about, oh my God, is this bill paid? What are we doing? Because it's not in our nature, and then it goes against the grain. We're willing to do that to a certain extent because, for instance, you have a husband who has a great job and he makes $500,000 a year and he loses that job. But you have all of these skills And you have to pick up the pieces for a year or two, whatever. A woman should be willing to do that because the man was doing his part for X amount of time. And it's not like we're all looking to be laying back drinking margaritas and pina coladas in the Caribbean with our rich husbands. It's not that, but we naturally gravitate towards security because that's in our nature. So the financial aspect that he's talking about, yes, to a certain degree, that is a thing. Is it a priority? It's on our list, but it's not everything by any means.
Let me ask you this. So, Kristen, when I don't know if you're in a relationship or not, but when you
Yes.
were dating, do you ask the guy how much he makes?
No, I would never ask that. That's something that comes way later on naturally in conversation. I would never be like, "Hi, this is an interview. How much do you make?" No, I am more energetic in that, and I guess it's because I'm a little bit of a hippie in that regard, that I just read the person's energy and I'm like, does this person have potential? Because a man can be super masculine and be at the bottom of his financial game, but he has so much potential to become a multimillionaire. And a woman has to be privy to that. And women haven't been taught to use that radar. They're just like, oh, this guy has money. And they go there and then they're not in love with them. And then it's a failed relationship because they don't love the guy. You have to look at a man and know this guy has potential. That's what I've always looked for, at least.
Let me chime in here. You said two things, and I want the viewers to realize that you guys need to read The Rational Male, because she just pointed out two things that Rollo pointed out. One, she said that basically, so Rollo writes this. He says that men are success objects to women and women are sexual objects to men. So you were just pointing out, like, when you're saying, like, no, he doesn't have to have money, but you pointed out, like, you know, he has to be able to, you see the potential there.
The potential.
So it's like you have to pick your guy before he takes off, because if he takes off, he might not be in the market anymore, right? So it's like you have to hedge your bets. You have to be real, as you're saying, using that radar, seeing what he has, and deciding whether you're going to bet on him or not and stick with it, because that might be something that takes you guys to the top, right? And he points that out too. Like, I think Rich Cooper says, typically women wait for the finish line looking for the winners, but sometimes women have to get in, make their bets on the guy sooner before he blows up, because they might not have that opportunity later. So I think that was really interesting. You pointed that out, because I haven't heard a woman actually say that yet. Both of those things. Coco, what do you think?
I think that there is 3 different types of areas for women. One of them is that the guy will have no money, but she finds him attractive. So she's like, oh, I'll give him a shot. Maybe I can make him better. There's the, I could fix him girl. Okay. Which typically ends up in a disaster. And then she ends up being broke and then whatever. And he never gets off her couch. Then there's the medium, which is like, as Kristen said, it's always a thought in a woman's mind. I'm curious, like, how much they make, just because it's more for stability. Like, they're looking for like, how stable is this? Like, he going to be able to provide for me if we were to live our lives together? What does that look like? Or is he going from one job to the other and he's quitting every 6 months or every year or something like that? For more of just like stable provision. And then there are women that literally all they see are dollar signs. Like, they want to know exactly how much you make because they want to have that lavish lifestyle. And they feel so great being like, oh, yes, my boyfriend's a millionaire. My husband's a millionaire. And then the next thing you know, like, he starts trying to break down rules, being like, hey, stop spending all this money. Like, we have a future. Or when he starts making and putting up boundaries in certain areas, when he was like treating her a little bit different when they first got together, because that typically happens, lavishing her in gifts. And then he starts putting his foot down a little bit. Then all of a sudden she loses her crap. And she was like, wait a minute. And then like Kristen said, when people marry for money, it never lasts long and it doesn't end well. So I personally don't look at a person and go with them because of like what their financial status is. That doesn't mean anything to me. Me is like, who are you as a person? And do you have goals? Do you have things that you're actively working on, not things that you're saying? Because actions speak louder than words. So if you have great goals and I'm like, okay, awesome. So I'm curious, what are you doing to get there? And then you start talking about and you see all the things that he is doing to actually get there and it's moving in that direction, then that way you guys can climb that success together by you playing your role, taking care of him and supporting him in that dream. And then his dream is your dream. It's your guys' dream.
It's a good point. It's a good point because you are a team. That's what
Yeah,
it's all
his
about.
success is your success. It's not about your success and my success. His success is our success.
Absolutely. So we're coming up on time here. And so I just want to get some like final thoughts on the show. And if you guys want to plug anything that you're currently working on, anything like that, Kristen, this was absolutely fantastic having you on as the special guest. Coco, as always, huge pleasure. But we'll go ahead and start with Kristen.
I have been just a mom over the past 2 months, so I'm a new mother, and I was very outspoken, like Glenn said, over the past 2 years on social media with all of the organized. I'm not going to go into detail about it because that would be a whole other 3-hour podcast, but organized stuff from the top down that is causing all of this role reversal that we're talking about now that I have a problem with. So you can find me on Instagram at Kristen, KRISTEN_BITTING. My account is private because I'm not just looking for followers just to follow me. I'm looking for people who are on the truth wavelength. So you can follow me there, or on Twitter, same thing, also private. And my website is there as well. And I do a lot of production work in the truther world. So that's me.
Coco.
Not a whole lot with me going on right now. Just getting in the gym because I'm gonna try to actually compete next year. So I've been working with my coach. Gonna get another one in the books, and I'm obviously always looking forward to Thirsty Thursdays. I love this show. I love everybody that always ends up coming on here. Obviously, you guys, and then the lady guests. They're always so awesome. And you guys can follow me on Instagram on cocobay.be.fit. And that's about it.
Kristen, it's been a pleasure. Like, honestly, I haven't seen or really talked to you since Token Choke. And you guys, that will be coming out sometime, whenever they get eventually. You will get to see Kristen and I appear on screen together. We have a couple crazy scenes. Both actually lead actors in that film, so that's pretty fun. I really want to get a chance to talk to you and have you on again. You brought up something about the darkness of Hollywood, and I think that would be really good to dive into one.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about with all the people, the blood people. Yeah. I really want to get on that with you. That would be a really great topic.
I'm always here to talk about that.
You expose that like crazy.
And it was crazy too, because when I started talking about that stuff, and I won't go too deep into it, but just for your viewers, get a little precursor to it. When I started to go, well, I've seen some weird shit in Hollywood. Okay. So all of this stuff that's coming out with the Q movement, even though that a lot of that is way out there. I've seen some stuff with my own eyes. How are you going to tell me that I haven't seen how weird this shit gets? So that was when I realized, I mean, people were giving me death threats, literally, online, and I was like, okay, this is whoa, like I was not expecting it to go into this realm, but so few people. I mean, and I'm a no-name person, whatever, but I was making enough of a wave that what I was saying was holding weight because I was still well connected. So
yeah, one of these days we're gonna have to get you on another podcast and really dive into that.
For sure.
Maybe something that we'll have a little bit more than an hour to work with, because I think there's a lot of information there that needs to be exposed.
Absolutely.
But what I got going on, you guys, obviously you find me here on Big Brothers. We Tuesdays we do our what would you call it, HUDs? It's more of a applicable information,
Yeah, actionable information.
actionable information. On Thursdays, we do this with the ladies called Thirsty Thursdays, where we ask questions about a wide range of topics, but centering around relationships and intersexual dynamics. And then on Saturdays, you can find me on the Dragon Ship at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And wow, I think we have Wisdom Wednesdays once a month on Wednesdays, and then we're gonna end up doing Sunday sermons. So that's in the books too. That's gonna be coming out. So just stay tuned. We're gonna be covering a lot of days on this as well. I got a couple roles I got to work on myself. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Huds, what do you got?
Perfect. Yeah. No, everything that you just said, we are really churning things out. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. As Glenn said at the very beginning of the show, I am a dating coach. So if you are trying to figure that area of your life out, hit me up at the Hudsman on Instagram. It's the best way to reach me. And guys, just make sure to like, comment, subscribe, get involved. This is going to be absolutely fantastic what we're doing as things move forward.
All right, without further ado, you guys have a good evening. Ladies, thank you for coming on again. And to the rest of you world, peace.